So, bueno, thank you, first of all, for inviting us and you for coming here. I don't know, I don't know if would be as perfect as we want to send a clear message here. I think that we should start, before answering the question, the super interesting question that has already a question mark, like, really is technology going to help us to break or to hack the gender gap? We will answer this during the whole conversation. But I think that we need to start with some data and figures regarding what is happening on one side on the tech industry. We all know that 100% of people who are working, 80% of tech roles are developed by males, and only 20% are technologists with a female perspective or female sensitiveness. No? This means that when we build technology, the way we think technology of technology features can do, we are starting from a bias point of view, because we lack the rest of gender's views about what this feature can do or cannot do. But anyway, so my starting point was to just raise some issues regarding where are women at the table, where are we participating, what are we providing in the industries. No? In music industry, we see that only 13% of board directors are females. In the last 10 years, I think that female presence in live events has been like in 2015, I think that Key Change, which is the resource, the most, I would say, reliable resource for understanding what is happening in the industry in terms of gender gap. So this is like keychange.org. This is a resource that you need to take into account if you want to get deep in the subject. You can see that 9%, only 9% of total artists in 2015 were females in live events. 9%. Now we have moved a little bit, and we have almost reached to 20%. And I'm talking only in Anglo-Saxon markets. This is US and UK. MIM is doing here in Spain a lot to provide also information regarding this. But what we want to prove, we had a lot of data. I don't think we're going to have time to repeat this, because what we want to reach is to the question like, what, and I'm asking you, we're going to do a ping-pong game here. So the fact is that we are all aware that there is an offline industry bias, that the industry, music industry is ruled by men, tech industry is ruled by females. So when we get to the question, there is asked, like, why is technology in music? How is this impacting us? And how are females going to be able to be more visible because the technology we are using is just making them invisible? We will try to ask this question, or try to focus or give some responses to this. But I want to start opening the conversation between Patty and myself about what are the challenges. So, if the technology could be a resource to solve the gender gap, what do we need to before understand that this is happening? So what are the challenges that the music industry has, or music tech industry has, regarding the gender gap? So what are we facing? What are the challenges? What do you think we are challenging here?
Well, I think first we need to kind of state the obvious. The AI or technology, I think, is as biased as our society is, right? So we can't say, you know, technology can solve it, because it comes from us as a society. So that's, I think, maybe something we need to establish from the get-go, that there is a bias. And now we can also talk about how that manifests, and how also the data is biased, because we also need to think about who is prompting, for example, when you have like machine learning, when you have engineers, who are the people that are prompting the data? Like, and of course, if you don't have female engineers to bring in their own perspective, then of course, maybe, some of it will not be covered, right? Because you need a different perspective. A man probably, not ill-meant, but probably doesn't think of certain things that we as women would think about. For example, I was preparing, I think, for a workshop, and I asked Copilot or ChatGPT to create, of course, I prompted like, okay, let's assume we have an avatar for an artist that is maybe self-published or, has, or another avatar could be one that has a deal with a label. And I prompted that, and immediately came the avatar name that is male. So that means the technology didn't even take into account that the avatar artist could be female. And why? Because probably it wasn't trained on data that included a female or even gender diverse person. So again, I think the root is, or maybe the solution and the root cause is, we need to have more diversity also in the engineering field. We need to have more female. So there is an underrepresentation, and that is one of the challenges. There is underrepresentation of female in many, many aspects of music. So it is the engineering, but also in leadership. I was the director for metadata operations, and I was I think, the only person in the European office that was of color and a female leader. And that also shows, even in areas where I would think, like music, we have so many female artists, and still, even in that industry, we have so much underrepresentation. And that is one of the reasons. So underrepresentation, and maybe it's also that certain roles have stereotypes, and maybe even women don't even think they can do it because they don't see examples of females in, for example, mastering. When I was working in the recording business, the master engineers were all male, or the mixers, the producers. So wherever you looked, there was no female representation. Of course, if, let's say, I would have been interested in these areas, I would think, well, I would be alone in there, right? There would be no female that I could look up to. So underrepresentation is definitely one of the challenges.
Yes. About the lack of role models, I think. So one question I have to the audience, so we can warm up to have this conversation later. Now, what can each of us do regarding this? No, so if we have an offline bias or problem, like in the music industry, because the patriarchy has been here for I don't know,
time, yeah.
thousands of years. So changing this is difficult, and we have all this bias in our mindset: females, males, gender diverse people, whatever. That this science research, which said that girls, when they are 5, they know they understand they are less capable of developing maths than boys. Girls 5 years old. So we are really fucked here, because girls who are 5 years old do not know if they are or not. They are too young to understand if they are capable or not, but they feel they are capable. So the society, cultural values are also mining, and
yes.
also are part of our bias, and we contribute, or how we can contribute to this, or we can just step back a little bit. Companies that do have policies, like music companies that have policies like regarding diversity, and they follow this, have better results, not only in terms of team, a mixed team, a multicultural, more rich team, but also economic. And this is something that it's not me saying, it's Accenture, Boston Group, blah 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 blah. It is also that that, for instance, in Spain, there is a mandatory norm that says that companies that have more than 50 people working together need a diversity policy and an equality program. And this is not happening. So this is a very simple way to start opening with the people that you work with. Like, how would we like to have this? This is one of the factors that leads to more females in leadership roles. This is what we need. If we do not have females in leadership roles, things do not happen. We did a study last year in which we showed in the tech industry in Catalonia, with Cercle Tecnològic and Generalitat, that where women were leading companies, tech companies, there was a 48% average of balance between males and females in new contractions and retention talent.
And I can attest to that, because in my role as a leader, what I did also to increase the diversity in the team. There is a lot we can do, even if you're not a leader, but you can, even as a manager or a team lead, you can always think about how to be more inclusive. And for example, I rolled out a lot of strategies in order to increase the diversity in all aspects. And we started, for example, with the unconscious bias training, because exactly. We all have biases, exactly. Whether we know it or not, including myself. And we started with that so that the team leads were aware. Because, for example, when I would say I'm German, some people would look at me like, well, you don't look German. They would immediately diminish my quality to speak the German language as someone biologically German. And that doesn't only apply to me, but also to a black person from Sweden, or to an Asian-looking person from, I don't know, Denmark. So I really started this bias training to just instigate, like, we all have biases, and it's not inherently something like bad. It's also protecting us, but we need to be aware of it, and we need to think about where it's coming from and be aware. Once you're aware, you can try to overcome that. And it really worked, once we had the conversation in the team, and then we immediately started to look at applications in a different way.
Exactly.
And also when we had, for example, and also when we teach how diversity can really increase the quality of teams, but also how it can also, from a revenue perspective, give us new incentives, because all of a sudden we had this diverse group. So people were really happy to add, like, okay, we were thinking about metadata, how can we make it inclusive? And people came up with ideas. We came up with, okay, maybe we need a field instead of just having neutral, binary, non-binary.
So before you go forward.
Sorry.
No, what is metadata in music? This is one of...
So metadata is basically all the data that describes a song. And you could even say that metadata is the birth certificate of a song. It contains the name of the artist, it contains the song title, it contains the length of the song, the original, like, is it an original title, is it a cover version? And
beats per minute.
Yes, beats per minute. Is it up-tempo, is it mid-tempo? And why do we need all that? Because today, we also needed it in the old days, but today it's even more it's even more needed, because all of that data feeds the algorithms that make us listen to a song. And also when you are in a car, when you are streaming music at Spotify or any other digital service, you immediately see the information, like, who is this? And also when you Shazam something, when you don't know what it is and you want to know, all of that is called metadata, and that's what in the past my team enriched. And of course, the more you put into it, the more it enables you to discover the music, to build recommendations, to build algorithms. And that's why metadata is really crucial. And nowadays, we need to ask ourselves, is the standard that we have and that we used to have 30 years ago, is that still, you know, how it should be? Because the world has changed. And now we need to think, and that's why we're here, we need to think about, if we want to be inclusive, we also need to think about how to make the metadata more inclusive. Because only when that metadata is made more inclusive, you as the consumers will be able to see that. Because if we don't feed in the background, you know, a set of data with, okay, this is a female, and maybe this is a black female, or an Asian female, or a gender diverse person, you know, how can you then search it? If it's not tagged, if it doesn't contain the keywords, you will not be able to search it, and that also means in return, some artists will not be discovered. And of course, all of this is crucial, because if you're not being discovered as an artist, you cannot make money. And
nor your company, the company that represents you. So it is not only a matter for the artist, it has a direct impact for the company, for the label, for the whole stakeholder chain, right?
Yes, so the whole value chain could profit from metadata being inclusive, but mostly the artist actually, right?
Yes.
Because it's the artist at the end of the chain that will get paid. And if a female artist or a gender diverse person, you know, releases the music and they are not discovered, basically they are not making money.
Exactly. So this is the challenge that we wanted. So we have been waiting 20 minutes to explain to you. Today there is no standard that includes gender metadata. What is gender metadata? Gender metadata is the description. I mean, gender data is something that in the Peking Declaration in the 90s, the United Nations started to spread the word about. So gender data is about data that takes into account the differences between genders. So for the COVID vaccine, no, la vacuna del COVID, this was not taken into account. So the consequences of not taking into account the different features that different genders, or some people do not like to use this word, sex, birth, and nature, if we do not take into account these for the different needs that technology or science can help us, then we are not doing the correct probably interpretation, and the impact is not going to be the same. So when the United Nations started to openly claim for gender data for public statistics, the more developed countries, or the countries that had more resources, started to identify how to create this gender data. So this is gender data. Gender metadata is exactly metadata that can provide information about the gender, in this case of the author or the music contributor, because it is not only the authors, it is the composers, the musicians, whoever takes part in the music creation, right? So today, the DDX, who is the governance, I would say, hub, no, 22 years ago or something like that, the music industry reached to an agreement, and they said, okay, now that we are becoming digital and everything is going to transition into digital, we need to understand how the information data is going to be structured. What is the data architecture of the whole thing? How it was at the end of the Napster era, I would say, and the beginning of the streaming one, right? So streaming DSPs need, or they pull data from this central hub. It's an open source architecture maintained by the DDX. DDX is something that I think that the board members are people from even the British Library. Like it comes from how do you call the archivists, like the ones that meta tagged everything, were the no? Yeah. And now technologists and data engineers rely only in those types of pieces of information, metadata. How come can we generate algorithms that need to take into account a lot of things if this topic, this feature, this attribute does not exist. What we're doing, we're talking about the music industry, but this applies to everything.
Yeah.
So when we are all talking, why are algorithms biased? So it is because the data is not well trained, but the data is composed by metadata. So we need someone, a governance body, who says right now, okay, we will include this, and probably things might start to change. But if we do not open a conversation about this, if we do not understand the importance of gender metadata, we will not be able to challenge what these algorithms are doing. They are just being fed by data, who does not include many relevant attributes that, at least for 50% of the population, are very important, because this, we have some figures here that we can share with you regarding, for instance, what the streaming platforms do. So Spotify has 44% of the listeners of Spotify are women. Women stream 32.3% from female or mixed gender artists, and men only stream 18%. So these are facts as transparent as Spotify can be in this sense. But what we know is that the way streaming platforms are hacking what their own algorithm is doing is by human curation. Okay, we can fight this, but we know that this is limited. How can we make technology a tool to promote gender equality? Is by changing the way we design technology. And it is not that complex, so we can explain to you what our project is doing. We are knocking everyone's door. We're knocking the door of DDX. DDX is passing the ball, is a Spanglish expression. Sorry. But so everyone say, no, this is not my fault. No, this is not my fault. No, this is not my fault. This is the current state of the problem. So everyone is saying, no, here you are. So what we are trying to build is a new framework, beta testing the input data, and this is now becoming maybe too boring, because now we're becoming techie, metadata, the input, output. We don't want to talk very in technical, but no. we want to just mention and openly clarify what is the problem and how could we solve part of this bias by designing new frameworks for technology impacts that can be tackled, because it is not impossible, it can be tackled. So these are the opportunities that we are facing right now. I can see an opportunity here, as well as Fatiha.
Definitely.
And I don't know, what do you think that we could also think as an opportunity in this moment in which we are facing, and we do know that technology can be designed in a different way, and we only need like a common will and a common hope that we can do it.
And implementation. So I think, one of the opportunities is, whilst we're working on the framework, because it also needs legal framework, for example, because in many European countries you cannot collect certain data on people because it's personal.
Article 9 GDPR.
Yes. So that is also something, that needs to be tackled. We circumvented that a little bit in my role as a diversity and inclusion lead for Europe. We did surveys, so it was based on, people volunteering to give us information for a good cause. But of course, if people don't participate, then the data is not complete, right? But it's a start. And then, of course, until everything is kind of, rolling, what digital services are doing at the moment, and I think that, also confirms some of the statistics we talked about yesterday. Like, when you have men, as, 60% streaming, and they only stream, the number?
18%.
18%.
Yes.
So what you could do is in the recommendations that they get, you could include female artists so that basically they are exposed to female and gender diverse artists by just including them in the playlists that they will listen to. So it makes it possible for them, without actively searching, to just discover new artists that are female and gender diverse. So that's one aspect that can be done by curating, humanly curating playlists. And then for example, in my role, when we were, as Gracenote, we were providing metadata to DSPs, we already included it in our database and informed the DSPs that from now on we will include, binary and non-binary instead of not including anything. So, and these are little steps, but of course, if you just do it step by step and include more and more, it will be fluent, right? And the other thing is, I think, education and making the stakeholders in this, like labels, publishers, DSPs, distribution companies, everyone that basically works with metadata, raising the awareness that it could increase their income stream, by including gender diverse features or fields, because at the end of the day, if more is discovered, it also means more money. So the industry then maybe has more incentive to include this method, to include these data, let's say, data parts into the whole metadata, because there is an incentive. And of course, nobody, I think, in the industry just does things out of good cause, let's say. Maybe the willingness is there, but you also have to think in costs. Because if you change systems, if you add stuff, there is a cost attached to that, an operational cost. So you need also to attach, of course, what is the benefit, what is the return on investment if we do that. So raising awareness about the return on investment, I think, is one thing that we all can do.
Exactly. We can ask our audience if including, so if we start if we create a new legal framework, or we adapt what we think we cannot adapt to the legal framework that we have, 9 GDPR article.
Yeah.
And we start asking the authors and managers and labels to include, because TDX, for your notice, TDX is saying that they cannot add the gender attribute because they do not have permission to do this. It is also true that today, it depends on where you are. You are not feeling safe, you say that you are gender diverse.
No.
So there is also a balance thing here between privacy and economic empowerment, because we're talking about economic empowerment here. So we're talking that DSPs today, it is a fact, they discriminate females, and they do what they can, like with human curation. It is not on their side. It is in the side of who inputs the gender data. And everything starts with a legal contract in which authors need to say, yes, I would like to have my gender or my sex birth identity here. And everything would start, like the data chain would start at that point, and then DSPs would have the feeling, they would feel safe to use this data, and then this moves to the digital distributors, to aggregators, and then to the rest of the value chain. So, I mean, understanding the relevance of metadata in terms of gender diversity and gender equality and the gender gaps is key.
And I would like to also add that it needs to be treated with a sense of sensitivity.
Exactly.
And we should not forget, although this is maybe an Europe-centric conversation because we all are based in Europe, but of course in other countries, it might not be beneficial to disclose your gender.
No, it cannot.
Especially, when we talk about gender diverse artists. If you are in, let's say, Muslim countries or in Asian countries, we have to think about that part of the world as well. So even if we think about, okay, we want to include it, I think there needs to be a mechanism at the DSP side
exactly.
to block out that information in, let's say, in regions of the world where it is not safe.
Exactly. See, that is the privacy and feeling safe, balanced thing that we need to take into account. But I mean, yes, this is the attribute. We're talking about gender here gaps, but we could talk about other diversity gaps here. So this is also something that can scale to other diversity, values in tech. No, because at the end, we're talking that this bias that comes from offline mindset transforms or gets adapted into the digital landscape, and it is transformed into a tech bias, but it is not a tech bias. So technology is not neutral. Technology is not neutral. This is, to me, it's a fact. Maybe it's a political fact. Maybe there are people here that do not agree. We can have a conversation with the patatas fritas and the beer or something, but technology is never neutral. There's someone who designs it, and there's someone who executes it, and there's someone who impacts too. I mean, so it is not neutral. And I don't know, maybe we can, I don't know if we have time, if it's 7:20, and you said...
Since we started late, we can have 10 more minutes, maybe?
Okay, okay, because we can talk for a while. So now we were thinking yesterday, so how can we wrap up this conversation and not be pessimistic about the future? We have to be optimistic. So I don't know, maybe we can throw some ideas that we had. Patty, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I think, for me, we will, I think as an industry, we will work, and also with the gender tech project, we will work on these aspects, like the legal frame, thinking about how can it be made inclusive, and this will take a while. But while this is happening, I think it's always good, or I always feel like, what can I do as an individual, and what can I do as part of an organization or as a team, as part of a team? How can I be more inclusive in general? And that empowers me much more than thinking, oh my God, this whole AI and, technology, and we can't do anything about it. Yes, we can. Also, when you use ChatGPT, I don't know if you know, but the way you are prompting, you are also training the model. So the more we work with it and the more we question also things, the more the machine will learn to also maybe include other aspects. So that's also what we can do, be more inclusive in the information that we get and question, hey, why ChatGPT, for example, I did with the avatar, as an example, I said, why did you give me only a male avatar, artist avatar? Include also female or gender diverse.
Exactly.
So that's one way for me to add, to work on it. And of course, in my role as an advisor, as someone also working with many, many people, I also challenge some of the ideas. And I make suggestions like, is it that way? What can we do to make more, to make things more diverse? For example, when I advise also tech startups, most of the time I see white, a male. Not because they don't want to be diverse, but sometimes they also say, well, I didn't find anyone. I didn't find a female engineer. And then I challenge, where did you look? And also when you do job descriptions, for example, you can be inclusive, but you need also to have that language in the job description. For example, in Germany, We have people with disabilities are preferred, especially in the public sector, and it is stated in the job description. If you have a disability, please, hand in your application. You will be. I don't even know the English word. You will be preferred as an applicant. And
this positive discrimination.
Yes. So we also need, because what I always hear, whether it's female or gender or ethnicity or whatever, when it comes to inclusivity, what I always hear, and I challenge that, like, we don't find the people, they are not out there. Then my question is, did you search in the right area, number one? And also, how did you make sure you are also inclusive in your job description? And maybe did you brief also the recruitment agency or the recruitment department? And how does that look like? So that's, I think, what we can do if we are in those roles, but also just challenging, challenging thoughts. And also, if the pressure also comes from all sides, like, I want to stream, I want to have more in my playlist. For example, more gender diverse, or maybe, even genre diverse music. Then, of course, we can also give that feedback to the DSPs. Because at the end of the day, it's also the consumers
who
have the power.
Exactly.
So
it is the consumers that at the end want to listen more diverse music, or I don't want to talk about diverse music, but diverse origin.
Yes.
Who's the singer, or who's the composer, who's interpreting this? But so I think that also one of the opportunities that we have. I don't know if this has been very boring. Hope not. But I think that if you work alone, like having this, we can send you self-quizzes about how biased one is, and we are not really aware of how biased we are with gender, like not even, I'm going to make a joke, I don't know, not because this is recorded, and then if I see it again, I will. But the definition of the commitment, I would say, the commitment to generate a more gender diverse working space. I don't know if you work in music festivals. It is for sure that bringing women and gender diverse people is going to be more costly for you, because I don't know, like female in ICT. We know that it is only 70% of the students that study ICT, or who are females, like the 83% remaining are male. So when this moves to the industry, there is the first gap. We will see it with the recruitment messages, like with employer branding. So there are many things that can be done. This you have been mentioning, like the communication, blah blah blah, like the famous Amazon cases regarding talent, new talent, etc., and the AI bias, blah 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 blah. But the AI bias was because of the same. So because there was no gender data and gender metadata, that was the reason why these AI machines will, if they are not correctly trained, so not even synthetic data is really reliable, because the origin of all this is biased. There is a positive thing here. 30% of students that data engineering or data analytics, etc., are females, as well as AI. This is what is pushing up the percentage. So this is good. I think the message for the society and the roles and the leaderships, etc., are good. But we need to take into account that the tech sector in these last 2 years has lost a lot of female leadership referrals. YouTube. Now, I don't know if ChatGPT was the best CTO of the world, but at least she was someone who was hacking the gender stereotypes. I don't know, so many that have just abandoned the sector. So the second thing is, if you work in a company in which you have certain power and you don't have gender data in your company, you will never know what are you doing, what is the performance of your employers. Are females performing better or worse? Why? You never know. So there is a very interesting research done by Deloitte. It was published in 2022, Deloitte Insights, and they were comparing what happened in big companies that had more than 100,000 employers. So I don't know, there are not so many in the world, regarding gender data and how they were using this to their own internal analysis of people operations. And they were comparing this with small companies who did not have the resources or the time or the need to understand what was happening in this in the career path of people that were not males in tech. And this was a disadvantage for them because the powerful ones had a lot of resources. They were able to retain much more female talent and other diverse talented people than the small companies. So having basic KPIs and tracking them is a very easy way to understand what is your company doing or what are you doing. And believe me, there are digital firms can, have Airtables with 200 different KPIs. We are a non-profit. We publish these things. So if you want, there's a lot of information outside that can be very valuable to understand the importance of gender data, to understand what your company is doing, and also how this is determining the technology that is being designed because of the gender metadata. So the gender metadata is not something that is strictly related to music industry. It is general. We've said this, but the difference is that music today, half of the total amount of money comes from streaming, 50%. So the amount of, the market size is half streaming, half live events. So it is becoming super digital. And that is where 20 years ago, those guys said, okay, the British Library was, and the old archivists were able to understand that everything was becoming digital, but they could not see that visibilizing certain attributes would generate the effect that today we are facing. So we can all understand and be aware that if we do not think that the technology can be modified and designed and co-designed, because at the end DDX is not there's no big five tech, there is no GAFAM there. It belongs to everyone, to all the stakeholders in the sector. So, yep. I mean, we can do things. I don't know. This is to me the positive effect of thinking that technology. At the end, we are the ones who design technology. We are not only the ones that consume it. So I don't know. Raise your spirit. We can do things. We can change things. We only need to understand what is wrong and I don't know. Beta test new ways of solving and creating new frameworks. No, you're saying. Yeah. Should we stop? Or blah, blah, I'm here talking.
No, I think we could.
Here, days.
No,
so, Fati.
No, I think that's a good way to end it. There is ways that we can all change the status quo, and I think again, I want to end. How can we as individuals and as part of an organization or part of society can do our part, while the other things are being worked on, because we're all in this, and only as a society, but also as stakeholders, we can change it. So it's not in the hands of one group. Exactly. So that's also what makes it more empowering, exactly. Rather than thinking, oh my God, the algorithms are wild and we can't stop it. We can by contributing our own part.
Okay, thanks for wrapping it up. I would like to open the floor now to the audience. Does anyone have questions or comments on what was discussed, or does anyone want to add something to this big issue? David?
You're looking at me. Thanks for the insightful talk. It was very interesting and inspiring. I just wanted to maybe to comments first. In my own experience, what's worked best in the organizations to foster a stronger diversity culture has been actually revenue and money and proving that. Yeah. As crude as it sounds, it's the shortest path, and there's ways to detect those data points. But I wanted to ask you a question about metadata specifically. There's an ongoing discussion with this new AI trend on whether this could be a threat for, let's say, minority cultures or languages, for instance, or an opportunity as a way for local creators that have been only reaching a very limited set of audience could open to broader audiences due to automatic translation and things like that. So my question is, do you think there's a possibility to apply this same opportunity mindset with the new AI way of detecting features? I'm just throwing an idea, like maybe we cannot store legally gender metadata for privacy reasons or for safety reasons in some countries, as you correctly described, but maybe we could detect vocal features and infer whether performers are female, male, whatever. So trying to make it more automatic in that sense as a way to and I agree, we are not going to solve the problem of the world with technology, but do you see an opportunity to use this yes. Opportunity for?
Of course, I mean, no discussion because I think that Digital Femmes is doing an experiment with CCM, o sigui, la Corporació Catalana, and we're exactly doing this because there is also a privacy matter. You cannot identify for privacy reasons who is talking and then say, okay, by the face, for instance, facial recognition, but you can recognize the voice, and that is a solution to provides information, data. It's a data point, as you said. But to me, we're not tackling the structural bias. So by pushing for gender metadata, what we're providing, I think, many open solutions because we're inputting that piece of information in the system. If we do not input that, AI will be trained, machine learning will be not correctly trained. And I mean, this is, as I told you, we can talk, but this is a problem that we can face in every single data technological project. Like, we work with data sets from the Justice Department to analyze what happens with gender violence, for instance. And gender data is not inputted correctly. So it is very difficult to understand the reality of it if we do not input this data. And I mean, and the thing is that the more aware we are, your name is David, no?
Yes.
Do you have kids?
Yes.
Do you have a girl?
Yes.
So you are probably more sensitive to this problem because you will see it. You will see how she is facing bias. Society and herself is biased. So that is the responsibility, I think, that we all need to be aware of. So I agree with your point. I think that the more we do, the better, of course, but
I think we need to tackle it from all different aspects, because this is also not a unique problem. It's also, or, let's say, not problem, challenge, and it needs to be just tackled as anything else that is complex from different perspectives and from all angles. And that's, I think...
Imagine the discrepancies. Imagine that the publisher is able to detect the regular, no? And then spot the DSP says, no. I mean, digital discrepancies are super common. Like, what it is common is between 10-15%, but if we use different AIs who are not even like the standard, like everyone would be using their own. Well, no, this happens today with basic stats. So the more complex we get.
Yeah, and also, of course, the next question is also, would transparency help? Because if we know how algorithms work, and Spotify uses their own algorithm, Facebook, everyone uses their own. And if there is more transparency, you can also say, okay, this algorithm is not trained on this part. Can you please, make sure it includes this? So, again, it's legal, it's transparency, it's frameworks, but also we as, parents, aunts, uncles, we can all do our part also to break down stereotypes. I mean, why do girls need to be given dolls only? Maybe give them a computer, and tell them, hey, this is what you can do with all these things, and raise the kind of curiosity that is needed for, bringing maybe also girls and gender diverse people closer to other roles, So that's what we can do also to break it down, because it's really a long way, but there are many, many, many aspects of it. It can start in school, in the kindergarten. It can start in the, how do I increase female engineers into my company? And only if we do all these things, then maybe, there will be a better world. So there are many aspects that we can also, look at, even though we can't change the whole thing overnight. Because also, I mean, it took decades, if not hundreds of years, for all these biases to be created. So it will take probably, hopefully not hundreds of years to change it, but we all can do our part. And that's how I would like to think about it, empower myself. What can I do as an individual? And that's how I see it. So it will be multifaceted, and so is the approach of finding solutions. So,
okay, thank you, Fatih. Is there any more questions? Yeah. You want? No. Okay, so first you, then you. Could you state your name?
Yeah, I'm Danny. I think one of the problems with the algorithm, it's also that it's reinforcing laziness. I mean, one of the keys from Spotify is the idea that I no longer have to decide what I'm listening to.
Yep.
So then I'm slowly turning everyone to listen to the same music, which probably is men, white. I think one of the obviously first we have to tackle cultural. So we have to be that people get the idea that they need to search again, not rely on the algorithm, because the algorithm is obviously biased itself, not only by the gender but also by the industry, which is like taking us to listen to whatever they want us to listen, because then it's making more money for them. But also maybe if we get to IAs that that at some point teach us to for example, ask your Spotify, show me music that I've never listened to. I want to discover a language that I've never listened to, and because they have a memory of whatever we have, not the industry of ourselves. Like, okay, I'm ready to listen to music that makes me happy, not whatever you think that makes people happy. That makes me happy. Yeah. So at the end, it's also like adding metadata, but also our privacy turning to the same bias of the machine itself, because the industry is not going to do it. The industry is going to take us to the same path to everyone, I think. No?
I agree, you know. I think, of course, behind all of this, like the DSPs and stuff, is pushing content. And everyone, like the industry, is interested, of course, to push their content to increase revenue. So I agree with you, and maybe, you know, not even far long, there will be an AI assistant in Spotify where you can say, it's so personalized, and by the time you ask that question, it has information about you, you know, what you listen to, what time you listen to the music, you know, where the music is located, like, is it Latin music, is it music from the Middle East, is it music from the Asian region, etc. So I think it will happen. But I agree also with you, you know, as much as technology helps us, I think we need to train ourselves again to not be manipulated and to have an active say in what we consume. And that is also the part that we can do, you know. No, I'm not going to listen only to recommendations. I'm going to spend the time in searching, you know, music that I haven't been exposed to before. But yes, it does require, you know, an individual effort. And that's maybe something that I really like your comment, because it gives back the ball to us. And we need also to do our part not to be manipulated.
I agree too.
Okay, so we have another question.
Hello, so I'm not sure if I'll be able to explain myself really well, but if I don't, please tell me. So with everything that I kind of understood, I was just wondering, because like you were talking about diversity, but then it confuses me because then you're being specific with women or gender or gender diversity, sexuality, I don't know how to say it, sorry. And I'm like, I mean, that is just like a section of everything, because I feel like right now we're centering a lot of in that, and I mean, that's good because it brings attention to it, but I feel like we as humans are way more complex than that. I feel like we have emotions, we have feelings, and the things we grow with, the things that make us biased with something, and I feel like it would be nice if we could kind of like put into that metadata as well, like all these kind of like more human stuff, because I feel like gender is something like, it's kind of like basic, isn't it? Like, I don't know, I feel like it's just like the top of the iceberg, and there's just way much more down there.
I agree. I mean, inclusivity, of course, is not limited to gender. But of course, today's question or today's discussion was more about gender. But I think we all agree when at least when I talk about diversity and inclusion, it includes much more. You know, it's cultural diversity, it's ethnic diversity, for me at least. So any diversity aspect. And I think this is just representative, the gender, because of the project that we do, and you know, basically just the topic that we have chosen for today. But I agree with you, diversity is much more than just gender or gender diverse aspects. So, but I think it's just representative, you know. And of course, there are many also many, you know, projects that also tackle other diversities. But of course, we today are talking about gender. But I, for example, also have other projects where I'm advocating also cultural diversity. So,
see, we are trans hack feminists, so we include a lot of things under that. But yes, I agree. I mean, today the focus was gender metadata and make you understand the importance of this. But this is only a small little piece. But it is not that small. So the point was, there are a lot of things, but this is a representation of the problem that we are facing, because we are biased in our offline world. How is this transitioning into the digital world, and what is the impact? The impact is that everything is being amplified, not equally, as worse as it used to be offline. No, it's amplifying the thing. So we need to take this seriously, because I don't know, I'm 50 years old, but what will happen when I'm 17, 20 years old? You know what I mean? If we don't stop this, if we don't stop the laziness of users, if we don't understand the power that we have to decide, at least a little bit, then technology will eat us. I am an optimistic technologist. I love technology. So we need to look at the good side of it. And answering your question, yes, I agree.
So great, last question. Is there any other question? Anything you want to ask, comment? Yes, please. Could you state your name?
Okay. My name is Pilar. I'm from a company called BMAT. We do music recognition. Just as a note, we maybe help you for your project. We work with the Norwegian public radio and television broadcaster. And in the data that they need to report to governments and to the collective management organizations, they also report the gender of the performers of the music that they've used on the radios and televisions, which is very interesting. Yes. You know, that the public TVs and radios are very regulated here in Catalonia. No? The corporation also have quotas on Catalan music. In Norway as well, they have quotas on Norwegian music, blah, blah, blah. But interestingly, when we started working with them, we found out that they also have to report the quotas on male...
voice recognition?
So the data on female-male performers, it's provided by them. So this is the thing. It's not something that we provide based on technology, but something that they provide for the music that they license. I was just wanted to mention it, so in
That's
case
great.
you find it useful for your research.
We can have an online workshop. You can show the case, because we know the audience that would be interested in. Super interesting.
Just to let you know.
Happy to connect.
Okay.
Thank you, Pilar. Any other comments, questions, or inputs for the projects that Fatih and Taya are working on?
Yes, we will send you an email.
Well, you can connect at the bar with patatas and beer and exchange contacts. Okay, so let me just wrap it up. So from what we have heard, there is an individual responsibility that we have as consumers, that we all are, but then there is also an institutional, public, legal framework that we have to push. So it's working on ourselves as music lovers and consumers, but also trying to put politics and policy under pressure with lobbying, which what you're doing through your institutions. And I really like the last comment, and almost the last, because it makes us, brings us back to what we are, humans. So it's not all about being male or female or binary or not binary. It's how we feel about music, when we want to listen to music, what kind of music we want to listen, because we feel a certain way or we have certain emotions, and I think we share that all as women, men, and binary people. So, very nice note. Coming to an end, thank you very much for coming. It was a pleasure. Please take the advantage and connect with Thijs and Fatih at the bar. I will always also say that we have another upcoming event organized by the Barcelona Music Lab, which could be also very interesting for you, which is on AI and music in general. We have 2 days that we are going to discuss with different people from different sectors on how AI is impacting on the music industry in a legal framework especially, but also in other aspects, social aspects, which is at the end of November. I think it's the 6th and 27th of November in El Molino, which is a new space that was just reopened at Parallel. You're all invited to it. If you want to have news about the events that we organize, please subscribe to our newsletter on barcelonamusiclab.com. And thank you very much for coming. And let's go to the bar.
Thank you, Doris, for inviting us
Yeah,
and being
you.
a really nice host.
Thank you.
Thank you.